Hey guys, Jack Cypher here, and today we're going to be ranking the top 10 greatest fights in Bleach. Now, like all top 10s, this is just my opinion, so of course, it's 100% right, no exceptions. We do need to do some quick housekeeping. This video will contain spoilers, so be aware of that moving forward, and I'm only going to be ranking the anime fights specifically. The reason for this is because 1, I generally prefer fights done in anime over manga, just a personal taste of mine. The colour and motion just really drive it forward. But also the fights happening in the latter portions of the Thousand Year Blood War arc could be having extra scenes and details added into them, so I want to hold off on that. If we were including them, then the fights with the Elite Guard, Gremmy vs Kenpachi, and if all goes really well, the Zero Division would all most likely be included on this list. I also want to chuck in 4 really great honourable mentions, not in any particular order, but Rukia vs Arinero, Haribel vs Toshiro, Gin vs Ichigo Round 2, and Uryu vs Kurotsuchi. All are amazing fights that I really needed to give a shout out to. It pains me that I couldn't include them on this list. Especially Uryu vs Kurotsuchi. That fight was low-key very underrated. But now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get on to the video. In 10th place is the battle between Beasts, the captain of Squad 11, Kenpachi Zaraki, and the 5th Espada, Noritora Gilga. This fight is just a sheer slugfest. No complicated powers, no emotional ties, just 2 dudes going completely bonkers on each other. Now that would usually be a negative, but these guys are so ferocious and powerful that they more than make up for it with just their sheer physical abilities. The contrast of Kenpachi not being able to cut Noritora was a great detail. Noritora's unique weapon also worked really well in the choreograph of this fight. The fight picked up its paces when Noritora went into his release form. Also, low-key, this was one of the best Espada releases in the series. This was probably the first time that we actually thought Kenpachi might lose. He was taking blow after blow, and it started to look really grim. But then we got the amazing revelation of a sword strike being stronger when you use 2 hands. The ending of this fight was just so good, seeing Kenny's powerful slash, and having Noritora fall as Nell opens her eyes to witness was great. This fight was just that perfect in-between, which is fitting for the number 5 Espada. It was miles better than the Espada fights below it, but just not quite as good as the ones ahead of it. And speaking of Espada fights better than it, 9th place is the fight between Shunsui and Stark. This pains me so much because Stark is one of my favourite characters in Bleach and had the potential to be truly one of the best. I don't think it's wrong to say his character was fumbled. However, his fight between Shunsui is a masterpiece. The way they spent the beginnings of the fight scoping each other out, analysing each other, getting a feel for one another, Shunsui's surprise at Stark's prowess, getting the reveal of Shunsui's Shikai, and how can we forget Stark going into his resurrection? The Los Lobos scene might be one of my most re-watched scenes in all of Bleach. Another underrated moment is Stark revealing himself as the Primera Espada. That was just so badass. I always get chills every time I watch it. The only reason this fight isn't higher on the list is because while its beginning and middle are great, the end does fall off a little bit. Wonder Weiss ruins a lot, and when Rose and Love get added into the fight, while it's not bad, it does drop a little bit in quality. However, seeing Shunsui's more hidden dark side was great, and him killing Stark was handled very well. In 8th place, we have another of the Karakura Espada battles. Baragan versus Soifon, Omaida, and Hachi. Specifically the fight with Hachi. However, Soifon did have a good showing against Baragan. Her relationship with Omaida and seeing her bunkai was dope, Not to mention Baragon and his abilities in his base form was very underrated. But we all know the main reason this is on the list. It's because of the fight with Hachi. While it wasn't long, it was more than enough to establish Hachi as a truly great character. The fight was full of strategy and Hachi's quick wit. Time and time again, Baragon would decay and age Hachi's Kido spells. But through ingenuity, Hachi was able to teleport Baragon's own power back inside of him, killing the former king of Wakamundo in one of the most badass scenes in all of Bleach. 7th place is our first Soul Society battle between Ichigo and Kenpachi. Up until this point, this was the biggest fight in the show. Ichigo had just defeated a lieutenant, and now he was faced with a captain. A captain who in the beginning he could do nothing against. This fight was so good at setting that feeling of hopelessness. How on earth was Ichigo going to defeat this monster? But by finding his courage and getting a little bit of help from Zangetsu, Ichigo was able to even the odds and start fighting back. But this fight had some really amazing moments. Kenpachi hitting Ichigo with his killing intent, Ichigo being unable to cut the battle-hungry captain, Kenpachi taking off his eye patch and releasing his full power, the skull and hollow mask appearing behind them while they were charging up their final attacks, the end where both of them were impaling each other and proceeded to fall to the ground. It was all just so good. I do like that despite how powerful Kenpachi is, that if Ichigo went up against any other captain here, then he would have surely been defeated. Because of Kenpachi's fighting style and lack of Shikai or Bankai, it gave Ichigo the chance to match him with sheer skill. Any other captain he would have been simply overpowered, but because it was Kenny, they were able to have one of the best fights in the whole show. 6th place is an interesting one, because it's not a traditional fight. It's Aizen taking on absolutely everyone. Now, I've said it before, but Aizen is my favourite character, and seeing him completely turn these powerful Shinigami into fodder was great to see. Just the way he so effortlessly took down half of his opposition was so cool, and his battle with the remaining 4 was even better. Seeing them band together and come up with a plan to take down Aizen was great. But who could forget the total mindfuck that comes next? Easily one of the best moments in the whole series. When did you think I wasn't using my Kyoka Suigetsu? It's so condescending and just so Aizen. There has never been a bigger flex in Bleach, except maybe the finger stopping the blade in Soul Society, but who knows, it's really up for contention there. I would honestly say Aizen is the biggest flexer in all of anime. In 5th place, we have another Aizen fight, and it's the final battle between Aizen and Ichigo. Now, I know a lot of people have an issue with this fight, but I actually really enjoyed it. Ichigo rocking up looking cool as fuck after the Dangai was great. Ichigo doing some flexing of his own as he just manhandles Aizen and makes him his bitch. Ichigo destroying mountains. Aizen performing a full incarnation, Hado 90, Kuro Hitsugi. Ichigo breaking out of it with one hand. Ichigo settling the score from the Soul Society by catching Aizen's sword. Aizen turning into his demon form, which honestly looked really cool. But easily the best moment, Ichigo using Mugetsu. Even though this fight was shorter than it should have been, it made up for it with epic moment after epic moment. I know a lot of people have an issue with how Aizen acts after the fight, but I honestly love it and think it fits him so well. In the future, I'm going to make a whole video on this fight, and I'll go into why I think this scene makes so much sense for Aizen's character. In 4th place, we have Ichigo versus Grimmjow, round 3. Now, all of the Ichigo Grimmjow fights were amazing. These are one of the best trifecta of fights in all of fiction, and this fight specifically wouldn't be as good if it didn't have the other two. This is the accumulation of both of those fights, and by God was it a spectacle. It's probably the best choreographed fight in the whole series, with the possible exception of the first place spot. But even then, this is so good it might be better. We see an awesome looking Grand Rey Zero from Grimmjow, and finally get his resurrection, Pantera. The motion and speed of this fight was so insane, and despite the god tier action scenes, this fight is so good because of the emotion. Seeing these fantastic rivals duke it out for the last time, seeing how far they've come and how much they've changed. Having the fight be witnessed by Nal and Orihime was just that perfect touch. There's an argument to be made that I've put this too low. But in third place, we have the Clash of Titans between Yamamoto and Yuha, or to be more precise, Royd. Now, I'm not going to talk about this fight much because I legitimately just did a whole video about it. Definitely go check it out. In the video, I said that it was the best animated fight in the entire series, and I stand by that. We get two of the biggest moments in the entire show, Zanka no Tachi and the death of the head captain Yamamoto. Not to mention, we also get to see Aizen again for the first time in ages. This fight just has everything. I definitely recommend going to go watch the video I just made on it. You won't regret it. Now, from process of elimination, I can imagine you have a pretty good idea what the first two are. But what order did I go for, In second place is Ichigo versus Byakuya on top of Sokyo Hill. This fight, there aren't words to describe how good it is. This is the fight, the whole arc, an arc that many consider the best in the series, was leading up to. Ichigo finally being able to fight the aloof and cold Captain Kuchiki, the brother of one of Ichigo's closest friends, a brother who was fine letting his sister die, a man that Ichigo diametrically is opposed to. Up until this point, Byakuya had absolutely wiped the floor with Ichigo, but after achieving Bunkai, Ichigo comes back with a vengeance. If the Yamamoto fight was the best animated fight, and the Grimmjow one the best choreographed, then this fight had the most emotion out of any. We've been waiting for so long for Ichigo to finally kick this guy's ass and knock him down a peg, and this fight gives it to us in spades. Having both men activate Bunkai and throw everything at each other was just so powerful to see. I was literally on the edge of my seat cheering Ichigo on. Not only do we have the great Bunkai, but we even have Ichigo lose control and go hollow mode for the first time. We also have the emotional moment at the end when Byakuya explains all of his reasons for his actions, just foreshadowing his eventual save of Rukia. This was just a powerful fight. It had absolutely everything. One of the best fights, not just in Bleach, but anime in general. Now, you should all know what first place is. Now, you all guessed it, but in first place, we have the otherworldly battle between Ichigo and Ulquiorra atop of the dome. Now, this is probably a very cliche pick, but I couldn't help myself. This is the best fight for a reason. It's easily my most watched Bleach fight of all time. Having Ulquiorra go second release and just absolutely destroy Ichigo was devastating. Despite Ichigo's willpower and tenacity, there was just nothing he could do. Ulquiorra had his number completely. Even in his first release form, Ulquiorra still had Ichigo's number. Ulquiorra is one of my favourite Bleach characters of all time, probably in my top 3. Seeing him whip out the Serra Oscurus and the Lanza dal Relumbago was just awesome to see. I haven't even gotten into Ichigo's Vaste Lord form yet. This was just a fight of absolute monsters. Seeing Ulquiorra being completely helpless against the Vaste Lord Ichigo was both cathartic and hard to watch, because I feel like you can't watch Bleach without starting to like Ulquiorra, and seeing his fate was both tragic and beautiful to see. Finally dying just as he learns about the human heart. I could honestly go on and on about this fight forever, and I probably will in a future video. But if you guys have already seen this fight, then I don't think I need to explain anymore why this is in the first place. And if you haven't seen it, then go watch it ASAP, because my words will never come close to explaining just how good this fight was for Bleach fans. Now that wraps up this top 10. most of these places weren't actually that difficult to rank. I had a pretty good idea in mind what they were going to be, so I'm pretty happy with how this list turned out. But like always, leave all of your top 10s down in the comments. And hell, for the sake of it, throw in a list including the 1,000 Year Blood War arc fights as well, because I imagine when the anime is finally over, a lot of them will be taking up spots in this top 10. If you've made it this whole way and have enjoyed this video, then make sure to like and subscribe. But for right now, I've been Jack Cypher. Cypher out.